Hello, everybody. Pej here on Pej's Recovery Corner. We are here with a very special guest today. First and foremost, I want to talk about Pej's Recovery Corner. We are a recovery based podcast. We talk about all things recovery based or lack thereof. Um, and that could have a lot of different meanings. But today, my special guest is Carrie. Carrie, welcome to the corner.
Thank you.
You're
Pleasure to
usually
be here.
you're usually right around the corner because you're usually
Right.
always here whenever we're doing this. So Kerry's a dear friend. Love him very much. He is a man of recovery who demonstrates what we do in the recovery world as far as being a service, helping people. But first and foremost, we want to delve into your past and learn more about you and where you were born, where you're from, growing up, and all the other stuff that happened.
South Florida, baby.
South Florida. So tell us about that. You were born where?
Fort Myers, Florida.
Fort Myers, Florida.
Fort
right?
Myers, Florida.
Yes.
Yeah. Fort Myers, baby.
And that's where you were born.
Yes, sir. Yeah. I grew up with my grandmother for several years. Lived on like 3.5 acres and off a side street. And it was a very quiet neighborhood. Had a couple sets of friends there, and they were both sets of brothers, and one of the set of the brothers had a sister. They had complete families, and then there I was living with my grandmother, which my grandmother was amazing, amazing woman. I just think at some point my mom became ready to come get me and take me under her wing, or my grandmother just couldn't handle me anymore. I don't know what transpired.
Well, how were you growing up? Like, were you a bad kid? Were you like?
I don't
did you
think so.
suffer from oppositional personality disorder? What was it?
I don't even know what that is, bro.
Oh, it means you're basically oppositional. Like you're just a bad kid.
I don't think so. I don't think I was a horrible kid, but then I do. One of the things I do remember is that I started snooping around my grandmother's house, and I ended up finding a little tin cash box. It was a box and it had a bunch of collectible coins and silver certificates, and I was taking those, and when we go to the grocery store every week, I'd use that to buy a GI Joe, and then I had this whole finagle the whole way to get it in the car and get it home without her knowing. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it, if maybe she found out, and I really don't know. I haven't gotten into all that with my mother, and really I don't know if I need to. It's what's done is done. So pastor, it'd be nice to know, but it's history. I don't let that define who I am today.
Okay. So then, any siblings growing up?
Not until I forgot how old I was. I have a sister that's 10 years younger than me, and I have a brother that's 20 years younger than me.
Okay.
So yeah, they came along a little bit later once I moved in with my mother. And I want to say I was probably 11, 12 when my sister came around. I don't know. I have to do the math. I'm 46 now. So.
Okay.
But.
And then what happened? Like, how was school? Were you a good student?
No. Horrible. Terrible.
Where'd you go to school?
Never went.
Where'd you go to high school?
High school?
Yes.
I was, the little bit of time that I did go was Riverdale High School. It was right across the street from where my mom, and her soon-to-be, or actually husband at the time, moved to when we moved out of the neighborhood that I initially moved in to with my mother from my grandmother's house, which was a completely different environment that I was used to at my grandmother's place. Walked to school in elementary school. It wasn't too far. It was maybe 3/4 of a mile or something like that. We did walk down train tracks. Just a lot of little things that I remember. I mean, I still remember the first day of walking to school. And I still remember that. I remember meeting some kids there who ended up being my friends for quite a while. It took some time, though, to acclimate to the neighborhood and surroundings because I didn't carry a certain level of melanin in my skin. So I was, in a way, there was, I was a minority there in that neighborhood.
How were you a minority?
I was white.
And everybody else was?
Black and Mexican, mostly.
There's Mexicans in Florida?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Are you kidding me?
I didn't know. I thought there was
Immokalee, Florida, which is like 30 minutes away from my hometown, is like the migrant capital of the world.
Seriously, I thought it was more Cubans and.
No.
No,
Yeah, a lot of Mexicans, everything.
down there.
Guatemalans, yeah, Guats, what do you call them? No
So,
offense.
so growing up in a colorful area, blacks, browns, being the only white guy, was there other whites around too?
In the little 3 neighborhood area that we lived in, there was about 4 or 5 that I knew of. And I say 5 because I'm just guessing, but I knew 4 of. I was thinking about this last night.
Mhm.
I could even name them off, but I won't do that. There was a family that I was 2 brothers and a sister. They were my friends. And then there was a couple more scattered around, and but no, not a lot. It was going to elementary school at Edgewood Elementary. That was a very trying time. I got picked on. I got bullied a lot. I got my first fist fight in third. I think it was third grade there, second or third grade. Um, and
When they picked on you, like, what were they calling you? Names? Were they
Cracker,
Cracker,
yeah,
Whitey, things like that?
just Cracker.
Yeah,
It's more Cracker than anything down there. I
Mhm.
didn't hear anything. Maybe you white SOB or
Yeah,
you white F or what, you know what I mean? Something like that. But
right.
it's mainly they just call you Cracker, And I didn't ever experience that getting picked on and bullied on. The 2 friends I had at my grandmother's were just cool dudes. We just rode bikes and had fun and explored in the woods and stuff like that. But it was different. I immediately felt alienated from the world, and I felt like I didn't belong. I
Right.
just didn't belong at all. And that just went on. I went to 4th grade in another elementary school. We moved around a lot, and so I went to a different elementary school, and that at that elementary school, a lot happened there. After school one day, I was beat up by 3 guys, and one of the guys urinated on me. And I remember just how it made me feel. Not right then and there. It's when it sets in. It's when it sets in a week later or 2 weeks later, and then the whole school's making fun of you because. And you got to, you're there's good people. Like I met good people that were my friends for a long time that said, "Hey, man, one of my friends, Johnny G, he told me he goes, don't he told me what to do next time somebody came up to me and started screwing.
What did he tell you what to do?
Knock them out.
Just
Try to
fight.
knock them out, and that's what I did. The next
Right.
person that came to my face, I just hit him. And that person left me alone, and that took a few more times in order for people to leave me alone and let me kind of be me.
And did you start to gain some respect in the neighborhood?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I started hanging out with the older guys and a couple of the old heads that were doing their thing. They had their side hustles. Man, they started to take to me. One of the guys, I remember him saying, he goes, "You're always watching." He said, "That's a good thing. Don't ever lose that." And that same dude ended up using me to run around the neighborhood and, run stuff around the neighborhood that I didn't even know what it was. He always told me not to look in the bag. It didn't concern me. Just get it over there.
Mhm.
And that's what I did. And so then I started to meet more people. And then my mom moved out of that we lived on, was Washington Avenue. And then we moved one street over on Madison. And we ended up, I think we moved one more place after that. And then we ended up moving out away from those areas. But what I was doing in middle school is I was skipping school all the time. I pretty much made it through 6th grade good. 7th grade, I don't even remember going to school in 7th grade. I skipped school. I took the bus back to the old neighborhood, and that's when I really started getting involved in what was going on in the street corners and stuff like that.
So when you say back to the old neighborhood was it kind of hooded out? Was it like
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And you talk about what was going on in the streets. Like, was there gang activity? Was there drug dealing?
No, there's not a lot of gang activity down there. It's one thing about at least for my hometown. I know you go on the East Coast, it's a little different. Don't get me wrong. There's sets and there's gangs around, but it's not like you see.
So what was
out
it?
here.
Dope dealers?
Was there dope dealers. There
pimping?
A lot
Was
of
there hookers?
There was that, but I didn't even I never got around that. I didn't
Okay.
even know who did that. I think throughout my whole life, even up to now, I think I know 2 people that maybe were involved in that.
Okay.
So it was drugs more than anything. First, it was guns. That was what I was running around the neighborhood
Mhm.
for that old head, and then I became infatuated with firearms. And at 14 years old, I ended up getting charged with 6 felony firearms convictions or charges. And then about a year later, they ended up closing the case, and I got convicted of 5 of those
As a juvenile.
at 14, and I got convicted at 15. Yeah.
Convicted, like, did you go to juvie?
For that one, I stayed on the 4th floor of the Lee County Justice Center. They kept me there as a minor.
which was
And I think right at
you
the
were
end.
incarcerated in a jail cell. Were you with like in a
Yeah, the
unit?
4th floor of Lee County Justice Center is all adults. It's all adults.
So they had to put you in with the adults,
correct,
because of probably the intensity of
yeah.
your crime.
And everybody told me, you're supposed to be over at J, whatever they called it, DH or whatever. They said, you're supposed to be over there, man. And fortunately, I knew some people in there from the neighborhood that were locked up at the same time. So I was able to ride on their coattails. I got in fights in there. The first night I got in. The second time I was in, the first time I got in a fight the first night I was there. Matter of fact, it was within the first hour I got jumped by a bunch of people. But then after that, I never got messed with because some of the boys from the old neighborhood stood up for me.
Were you already getting into drugs or alcohol?
No, drugs, nothing, man. No drugs, no alcohol.
You hadn't even drank yet at this point.
No.
So you got in trouble for
the only
firearms,
alcohol
like
I had
that?
in my system was at my mom's wedding, man. And I have these two really close friends of our family. I think my mother and stepfather were their godparents, and I think they're one of my sister or my brother's godparents, their parents. But anyways, at the wedding, they kept giving me these cups of this orange slushy stuff, and they kept feeding it to me. And I remember just getting a little something. It was in a fire hall, and my mom was a big dancer. She had a band, and she had a disco ball. And I remember the lights from the disco ball just looking a little different. And I hid. I ended up hiding underneath the bridal table, laying across the chairs. Mm-hmm. And really looking back on it, I think it was for attention. I think it was because all the attention was over there on my mother and this new man who I'd never been around a man. My grandfather and my grandmother were separated. My grandfather lived on the other side of town. Mm-hmm. And my father left, but my biological father left before birth. So I never had a father figure around. So the men in that neighborhood that I ended up moving to ended up becoming the people I looked up to. You know, the dudes that were beating up the block in caddies and LeSabres and Impalas, and those are the people that I looked up to. It was
a lot. Was a lot of black people?
Absolutely, yeah.
Right. Because I know you got a lot of soul. No, you do, man. You're a hip hop junkie. Like when I first met you, I met you in South Orange County, and I was like, oh, he's just a dude from OC, right? Just a white dude from OC. Yeah. When I got to know you better, like I was like, no, this dude is like we grew up on the same music. Like we grew up in this. Sure. We know, we love hip hop.
Absolutely.
Like fucking love it.
That's what I was brought up on.
That's what we're brought up on. You know? It's like in our blood.
And this is what I think. I couldn't stand country music for years. When I was young in my teenage years, I couldn't stand it. Mm-hmm. And then we started scamming. If I stop, fuck it. We started scamming BMG and Columbia House records, getting them in the mail, and we'd send them to addresses that nobody lived at. Yeah. Right. And you get 12 CDs for a penny, and then if you paid the extra $4, you get like 15. So we would do that time and time again. So we had all the music, and every month they'd send you a featured selection that you just got. Right. And they sent me a Randy Travis album, and I was sitting there one night, and I said, "Man, fuck it, I'm going to listen to this." Right. Boom. My appreciation for country music just blew up. But I think it was like because I got so attached to the hip hop music, because that was the collective ego at the time. That's what everybody was listening to. Everybody was feeding into it. Right. I think that because I fed into that, it allowed me to open my ears up to other music. And I still say to this day, the only music that I don't really have an appreciation for is opera and that slash death metal stuff. Like it just doesn't even. My ears can't tune into it. Yeah. It's just, So
later on today, I'm going to put on some Pavarotti for you to listen to and just get all into it. Okay, so now growing up during that time in Florida, I mean, you said you're an open book the other day. There's certain things we don't need to talk about, but any kind of trauma that you had experienced?
Absolutely.
You want to talk about that?
That it's not that I don't want to talk about it, but also I need to have a conversation with somebody. At least I think this is something I need to work through. This is something in the last 6 years of being sober and in recovery that I haven't went down this path yet. So yeah, there was some childhood trauma. My guess is around 7, 8 years old. It was with a family member. And it was of a sexual nature, and I remember that. Mm-hmm. I always, years later, when I encountered that family member, I always felt like there was something weird. And when I got older to really pay attention to, people's mannerisms and their body language and their eye contact and all
Right.
that stuff, which I learned from the street. Um, I knew there was something weird about that person.
Mm-hmm.
And then years later, the dots started connecting, and I was like, that's why that person's always awkward to me.
Mm.
That's why that person always has got, because now I brought back all these memories that I just stuffed under.
Okay, it affected you.
Yeah,
Definitely. Well, it's good that it's good that you're talking about it. I mean,
Yeah.
you take the top.
yeah.
The power.
I don't like I say, I really am open book, but there's like, I need to give the respect to,
Right.
if I even want to choose, because that's something I need to work with you with.
Yeah,
You're the
sure.
person I don't know how to handle that. Maybe it's just, for me, I've accepted it. I've moved on. I don't let it affect me in my daily life today. And maybe it has over the years throughout times of relationships and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see that today,
Very well.
I've accepted it and moved on.
Drugs and alcohol.
So the first time, me and a buddy of mine skipped high school one day, and I hardly even went. I think I went to high school a total of like 60 days or something like that. But when high school, we got in my parents' liquor cabinet. I didn't get drunk, but that was like the first time I actually put alcohol in my system.
Mm-hmm.
He got trashed, ended up going back to school. I don't know what happened. And then I remember a buddy of my Pat got a hold of some bottles, man, and we got tore up from the floor up, man. We threw up all over his apartment. His wife came home the next morning. Boy, she was hot. And
I remember that. How old at this time?
I want to say like maybe 15, 16. It was.
He had a wife?
Yeah, he got married really young, man.
I was going to say.
Yeah, but he was also 6 years older than me. So, yeah, something like that.
Okay.
But she unfortunately passed away to this disease, man, years ago. A combination of opiates and Xanax. I know some of y'all have heard of that combination before. We're hearing a lot about it these days. But,
yes.
It's sad, man. But yeah, so then I started. I remember the next time that I really remember drinking was we stole some coolers from back of somebody's truck and went over to the high school to the pool across the street,
Mm-hmm.
and we got tore up in that pool, man. Tore up to the point where we couldn't even almost make it over the fence. And I remember walking back arm in arm with my two buddies, and I remember just feeling like, man, this is what's going to go down every weekend,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't. It was a really slow progress. The progression for me was very slow. For some reason, I was able to moderate. Whether it wasn't the fact that we weren't able to get alcohol. It just we didn't make it a point to be drunk every weekend. But then, once I got into like 18, 19, 20, that's where things really started to take off. First drug that I ever did outside of alcohol was ecstasy. And I went full blown into that, the culture.
How old were you when you did that?
I think it was like 20.
Okay.
20, yeah.
And during that time, obviously, I think you're a few years younger than me, but you were 20 years old in South Florida. Was there a large EDM community?
Huge break scene, huge.
And you were going to that. You were hanging
Absolutely. Yeah, and that ended up, turning into small businesses, into large businesses, and
what do you mean by small businesses, large? Were you dealing
promotion? That's what started it, and then with the money coming in, we're all thinking we could do this, we could run this. So I ended up moving to the East Coast and got involved in that for
where? New York?
No, West Palm Beach.
Oh, to East
West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale.
Because I've said East Coast for Florida before, and I got scolded by people because they're like, "No, that's not the East Coast." I'm like,
"Yeah, I usually don't. I think it's somebody just picked up out being out here." I say South. I'm from the South.
South,
because I'm about as far south as you can go, besides Naples and Miami, and the Everglades, but and the Keys, but yeah, I just say East Coast because we're on the West Coast, But yeah, that whole thing ended up taking off, but it just became a big party. There was for a while there we had a good amount of money to do whatever we wanted to do, and then one of my close friends, I saw that it was my closest friend, my best friend. He started taking them. He started traveling all over the state of Florida, and next thing you know, we're in Tampa. Next thing you know, we're in Orlando, and I can't stand Tampa. Nothing against the people of Tampa, but it's just not for me. Ybor City's not my thing, man. It's like a big drunk fest, and then you can try to throw a rave up in there. It doesn't work, man, for
Right.
me. Orlando, same thing. I'm not a big fan of Orlando. If you want to go there and visit for a couple of weeks and visit the parks and do all that, that's cool. But to live there, I just didn't enjoy the scene because it was a little different from what we were working out of in Fort Lauderdale and Miami, and more predominantly Palm Beach and Fort Lauderdale.
Okay. So you're doing ecstasy now. Like,
Yeah.
was cocaine in the mix or any other stuff? You never
No,
messed
I
with
didn't
that
touch
stuff?
cocaine until I was 37 years old.
Oh, okay. So throughout your 20s, it was more of a party type of environment?
Absolutely, yeah. Drinking here and there once in a while, but when I
once
I used
once we got into
ecstasy,
the ecstasy world, the alcohol,
all that,
kind of,
yeah,
you don't mix that shit.
No, I didn't
Okay.
mix anything.
So you were doing the love drugs, the designer drugs. You were having fun. You
Yeah.
were enjoying the music. There was all different types of music.
Absolutely.
Right. So,
But what really turned me on to it was, my buddy Pat called it fake buddies, when you went to a rave and you just meet people and all of a sudden they're like family, But that was the whole plur movement, the peace, love, unity, respect. Man, we lived that.
yeah.
Like it was real. Like it felt good.
Yeah, like
It felt good even when we weren't
You
using it.
love people. Yeah.
Yeah.
That you're interacting.
And my thing is, I have a huge fear of people, and ecstasy took that away.
Mhm.
And I don't know if my fear of people came just because of, I lived in a lot of depression and sadness that I didn't even know was present in my childhood and stuff, which just, it started growing tenfold by tenfold into my 20s and then into my 30s. And, drinking really didn't become a huge thing. I'd met a girl, I think when I was about, the ages and the times, man, this is what happens when you get old.
Mm.
But I think I was like 26, 27, 28 when we got together. And then there was like a year in between from us, a year and a half in between us for really getting together. And we were together for, 10 plus years. And, but her and I, when we first met, that's all we did. That's all we did was go to the bar and get, I don't even know how I got home. I don't know how she got home. Like, we'd make sure some nights we didn't. Some nights I sleep in my truck until I woke up. I mean, it was all that,
Yeah.
Um,
Was there more police interactions throughout your 20s?
you know what's crazy, man, is I've only had two police interactions since I was 18. I mean, there was a lot of interactions, don't get me wrong, but had a house that I was in with a friend of mine down in Naples, and we were heavily involved at the time. And we got the door busted in twice actually, and the third time they came to the house, we were already out of the house, and there was nobody there when they came. So, but yeah, there was a lot of that, man. A lot of the criminal world. I was linked up with some bad people. And I don't like to call them bad people because the people that I know are good.
They were
people.
just living different lifestyles.
It's just what they know. It's what they do.
So in your 30s now, you say that first time you tried cocaine, what happened that you went into that direction? Were you was it a regular thing?
I was drinking heavily. I was already.
So you went back to drinking.
So when I went to New York, because I thought there was indictments that were going to roll down because I got involved in some other shit down in Florida. I ended up going up to New York with a friend of mine, and I was basically hiding out,
Yeah.
and if the indictments did drop, and I got phone calls from Florida that, hey, they're looking for you, they're trying to serve you, then I was gonna kind of get the wheels in motion and kind of be ahead of the game a little bit, so they didn't just pick me up and take me to jail and then I'm stuck. But I just started drinking, man, like crazy. Smoking was in there a little bit, but I pretty much stopped smoking bud when I was in New York. I smoked here and there, and then there was like maybe a little period of like a couple months, 3 months where I was on it, but then it was alcohol, man. Alcohol took me to my face on the floor, man.
And during these times when you were deep into your alcoholism, did the thought ever occur to you like, I'm not really living a good life, I probably need to change this?
Oh, I knew it didn't feel good.
I need to sober up.
It felt evil, man.
Did you know anything about sobriety yet?
Nothing. I had one friend from South Florida. He's still living down there. That I used to drop him off at meetings, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one time specifically, he dropped me off at a meeting. I mean, I dropped him off at a meeting, and he kind of turned when he went to go out the door, and he turned to me. He goes, "You should come in sometime, man. Check it out." There's a cup. There's a cup in my cup holder with liquor in it, and that's just how I rolled. It was always a drink or some smoke or something.
How old were you at this time?
Oh man, like 30 something, 30, 32, 33. I think when this was going on, like when he was trying to get sober. And so that's all I knew.
So you had caught wind of some kind
of
recovery.
It. That's all I know is he was trying to stay sober, but I didn't have that problem.
Okay.
I didn't have what he had. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all they crossed.
Yeah.
I know he had wrecked multiple cars. He had many interactions and arrests with the police, or at least, there was one that I remember that was a pretty bad one, but nah, man, I didn't know nothing about recovery. It wasn't on my radar ever. I
Okay.
didn't think I had a problem.
So he was sort of the light, like he turned you on to the fact that.
No, I mean, I don't
he
want to take
messed up,
none away. He tried.
No, I'm saying,
He did,
well, there was, you'd seen somebody that changed their life from what you'd seen them living life before.
He was in and out. He was in and out.
Oh, he wasn't.
Yeah, he was in and out. Yeah.
Okay, so then down the line, I mean, I know you worked in a boatyard, right?
A boat dealership.
Boat dealership. Yeah. You were in a relationship for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Alcoholism was in full effect?
I wouldn't say it was. I do remember I was working. I think I got a promotion at work. I think I was a service manager at the dealership, and I'd come home and I'd always had a bottle of rum. I always had some nice rum, sitting there. And I'd come home and my lady at the time was cooking dinner, and the little girl was running around. And I remember I'd made a drink, and I'd gotten used to coming home and just making a drink, and that's it. Well, this night I think I was on 2 or 3, and her father was a career alcoholic, man. The guy that could, he was a functioning alcoholic. He could drink. I don't know how much he drank in the morning before he went to work, but then he'd keep a big old, 7-Eleven mug, and, and he drank all day. And then when he got home, man, he'd sit in the garage and just drink till he passed out. He was going to the doctor. He's bleeding.
He was the epitome of a functioning alcoholic.
Yeah, great guy, man. Love sitting around talking to him, but being around him. But he was that. I know that wasn't me. But my lady said something. She goes, you reminded me of my dad that particular night. And so I just laid off, man. I just stopped. It wasn't until I went to New York where the drinking really got insane, out of control. But before I went to New York, I was addicted to the pills, the Roxys. I got on those, and that's what got in between my relationship. That, that girl, I assisted her in raising her daughter for several years. Mm-hmm. And
why don't you say, like, when you say Roxy's, because there's some people that don't know what Roxy's are. What
oxycodone, 30 milligram.
30 milligram.
Yeah.
There used to be the Oxy 80s, and then they remanufactured them.
The time release, yeah.
Because people were getting the 80s before, and they were shooting it and stuff like that. So but it's not like these weren't still serving their purpose. They were still getting you high.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Especially if you double.
And I was. They were transferring through my hands way before I used them. That's how it was. I could go pick up a bag of Yay and never touch it. I just never did, man. Mm-hmm. Some old heads back in the neighborhood that I call my uncles, they told me. They showed me a bag of weed one time and a bag of coke, and they held it out. And my Uncle Robert said, This is the devil's food. He said, Don't ever mess with this. And it was weed and coke. And I just never did. I didn't even smoke weed until I think I was like 24. 25, and I'd already been doing hallucinogenics and ecstasy. Mm-hmm. That was it, So yeah, late bloomer, slow progression on everything. But I think that
Trey just said Roxyket, brand name for oxycodone.
Roxyset, yeah.
Roxyset, yep.
Yeah. But I think
Trey asked a question here. He said,
yeah.
Do you ever feel you have lasting effects from your drug use, such as memory problems or other health problems?
I mean, I definitely have some spurts of memory lapse. I mean, Pej and I run around this house all the time looking for shit. And they'll ask me, you seen this? I'll be like,
is it drugs or is it old age? No.
I don't know about any health issues. That brings up a really good thing, is that I'm kind of a procrastinator about going to the doctor. But I don't think I've had any negative effects yet that have surfaced, I know when I go to the doctor, they always say you're a healthy young man, and mm-hmm. It's hard to believe, being with all the shit that I was putting in my body,
Okay, so there's pills, there's coke, you had your ecstasy run, and there's drinking, lots of drinking during this time. Now, you start getting a little bit older, and you caught wind of somebody who told you that they can get you help.
Yeah, I had basically I'd gotten to a point in my depression and in my drinking where I decided that I didn't want to breathe anymore, and I didn't want to be here anymore.
Were you living in South Florida?
No, I was in New York.
You're in New York.
Yeah, I didn't start using coke until I was in New York. And that was just something where somebody said, you want something? They're like, oh, no, you don't fuck with it. And then I was like, nah, fuck that. Give me that. You know what I mean? So that's just how it happened. But that was a short thing. It was maybe a year and a half, 2 years on and off that I used Yay. But the drinking, man, I really feel like it was the drinking that accelerated the depression, the sadness. And I just felt like I had nothing to live for, man. I had no purpose. You know, I had been in a relationship that was just toxic, and it was, you know, I'll take full blame and responsibility for that. Because of my drinking and because I couldn't control or maintain anymore. I couldn't drink in moderation. I got to a point where my body needed the alcohol to function. I went through DTs. I woke up in my bed one morning, ripping the sheets, thinking there was bugs in my bed, and I freaked
hallucinating.
out. Yeah,
from too much drinking. Okay, so this is where it gets a little bit juicy. Who the fuck offered you help?
So one of my good friends from South Florida, his name, I'll just say his first name. His name's Ricky. I love you, man. If you see this,
Yeah.
I didn't know it. We hadn't talked for a little bit over a year, and he ended up coming out to California, and he had been out here for like 8 months or so sober, and he was living in LA. He was a chef, and he was working a food truck, I believe, in LA, and he had to get up early in the morning. And I had now at this point in my life, I had, like I said, I had decided to take myself off this earth, and I'd set a date, and I started writing my letters. I got all my letters completed to my family and a few ex-girlfriends and a couple friends. Got all that stuff out of the way, and I was just basically waiting on the clock. I had a calendar, man. I was actually crossing the days off on the calendar
to go kill yourself.
Yeah.
And you're going to commit suicide.
Absolutely. And my two best friends had both, you know, I don't want to say best friends. I got a lot of good friends in Florida that have been very close throughout the years, but the two guys that were closest to me, they both committed suicide. One in 90, I always get 97, 98 mixed up, or in 2012. And so being that happened, and now it's 2013, 2014, I felt like that was just destiny for me to do the same. You know, the two guys, the one guy I'd known since childhood, the one guy I'd known since my mother grabbed me from my grandma's and took me to that first neighborhood. That's where I met him. And he had been my friend ever since. You know, we were inseparable. Everybody knew it. So me deciding to do this and coming up with how I was going to do it, I couldn't put a gun to my head and pull the trigger because that's how Sean went out. I still to this day don't know how Rick went out. I imagine it was from a shot or pills because he was, you know, he was also involved in all that too. And so I come up with a way to go out, and I was out with a couple of my two close friends in New York one night, and they ended up dropping me off at the bottom of my hill that I lived up on or whatever. And I ended up blacking out at 1:30 in the morning. I remember the last thing I remember was shutting the door. My boy Minnie got in the car and we hugged each other. And I remember watching D's taillights of his Acura go down the hill, and that's it. Next thing I remember is waking up, hearing my phone ringing. I'm waking up freezing, cold, rocks, grass, wet. And I'm laying on my phone. I pick it up, and it's my boy Ricky from Florida. And I hadn't talked to him over in a year. Now, he had this whole experience that happened out here in California that facilitated that phone call. And I just broke down. Man. And he asked me, he says, do you want me to call somebody that can maybe help you? And I said, yes. And normally I wouldn't have said yes, but I knew that my life had gotten to that point where I wasn't going to be here. It's like, when you talk about this stuff, man, the pain, the depression, that sadness, it's still there. I mean, it's, you know, I don't live in it, and I don't entertain it, and I don't feed into it anymore. But when you talk about it, knowing the point that I got to, that I had chosen as a human being to take myself off this earth, like it's hard. It's hard for me. So Ricky asked me if, you know, you want me to call somebody. He got some guy to call me. He talked to me all the way back to the house, which I was down there. I went to the railroad tracks which is, again, I feel it's like always important to say this. Those railroad tracks is how I had planned on taking myself out.
You were going to have a train hit you.
I was going to lay my head on the rail. And when I say that I was sick, I was looking at videos that people had done. I was studying and researching about how long the brain still from what we know, is still active after the head is, off. And I mean, I was sick. And so that area that I had picked to do that, I was 2.5 weeks from that date. I ended up in a blackout, taking myself to those tracks after my boys dropped me off. And then Ricky has this whole experience out here in California where he had like a message and had like 3 separate times in the morning while he was getting ready for work at 3:34 in the morning, and calls me. And so he asked me if he wanted me to call somebody to help. He called somebody. That guy called me. The guy talked to me for like 2 hours. He said, let's stay in contact. I'm going to keep checking. He checked up on me every day. And then he was talking treatment. He was sending me treatment pamphlets through my email. I was looking, oh, that looks great, Then he's like, then he called me and says, you want to go to Mexico and sober up on the beach? And I'm like, sure, man. At this point, I was just like, I needed something.
You two were going to take anything. Okay, so this guy.
Yeah.
Did he buy insurance?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I didn't have health insurance at the time, man.
This guy bought you insurance. Now you're on your way to treatment. Did you know where you were going?
I knew I was going to Laguna Beach. That's it.
You were going to go to Laguna Beach, California.
Yeah.
You had no idea who this guy was that bought you this insurance.
No.
But there was just this hope, right?
No.
Okay. So
which is funny because that's their name. Their little fictitious little name of their thing was called the Hope Foundation or some shit like that. Yeah.
So yes, they're saying divine intervention, but this is where when I said it was going to get juicy, this is where this fucking shit gets juicy. Yeah. My boy was fucking. They bought him insurance,
but I had to pay money too before I even came to California. I paid over $4,000.
You had to pay the premium and all that.
I don't know what I paid. He just said I need this, and boom, send it.
But they set you up with insurance, and they brokered you out to California from Florida to go to treatment. Did they make any offers? Did they say like nothing like that?
No, nothing.
Okay, so the people who brought him out here were basically a father and a son.
Correct.
Who were more recently indicted. Well, not recently. I'd say over a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. They were indicted because they were obtaining insurance for people nationally and bringing them out to treatment to California.
Correct.
So in a sense, you were brokered, but like they didn't entice you with any kinds of money or anything like that. Nothing.
I think one time he said, I'll come visit you. I'll bring you some cigarettes. I'm like, bro, I don't smoke cigarettes. I never have. And I'm not going to start.
Was that the son?
That was the son, yeah. He was.
Should we say the name?
Talked to the nah, bro.
Don't say the names.
Nah, okay. Man, I don't live like that.
Okay.
I wouldn't. I've been. I don't. That's not cool.
Right. She says caught up in the shady, but you didn't even know.
I didn't know. And the thing about it is I was in detox for 72 days. Right. Then they held me at the house for.
Slow down.
All right.
Let me catch up to this here. Okay. You were in detox for 72 fucking days. Yeah. Why? Who the fuck goes to detox? I know people that had methadone addictions that weren't in detox for more than 30 days.
Number one, I had the best policies you could get at the time.
So they thought.
And number two, I also came in admitting that I was suicidal, man.
Okay.
I had planned out.
So they had you like on like a 7 suicide watch. All right. Yeah. But they had the best policy to keep you in treatment for that long amount of time. However, wasn't your shit inactive?
This is where it gets good. So I walked into treatment February 5th, 2015. My sobriety date is February 6th. By the way,
Dean is saying I went through the same. Dean, I'm having you on here, not only for that reason, many other reasons too, but I love you. Okay.
So I walked into treatment February 5th. My policy was active. I was in treatment for 11 and a half months as a client. This guy calls me, the broker guy calls me. I think it was like it was October, maybe something. And he calls, and I hadn't heard from him at all this whole time. He even came to the center, and I didn't even meet him. I didn't even know who he was when he was there. Right. But so it was like September, October, something like that. And he calls me and he goes, well, man, you've been there longer than anybody else. You're doing great, man. He goes, I get all the reviews. They said you're model client.
He was
blah, blah,
getting
blah.
the reviews.
Or at least he was getting feedback.
He was getting feedback from the clinic.
Feedback. He was getting feedback. All right. Where's the
He's
envelope?
checking on you.
He was getting them checks.
That's right.
But so he tells me, he goes, you're about up. Your time's about up. And so my head's spinning. I'm, kind of like freaking out a little bit, but then I wasn't, because I had somebody at that treatment center who's a very good friend of mine, and who I'm actually meeting tomorrow for coffee. She kind of guided me through the whole process, reeled me back in when I was ready to jump ship like 3 different times. But so I started spinning. So I called my insurance company on a whim, just thinking something stank here, So I called my insurance company, and the lady on the phone says, "Mr. Lagarth, your policy lapsed in April." And see, what's interesting is the treatment center didn't even know. So I went and I sat down, the director at the time, and then another gentleman who I think was in operations at the time, who's a very good friend of mine and ours today. And I sat them down, and I said, "Hey, we haven't talked. We haven't followed up. I just want to follow up and find out where I'm at with my insurance." And the director looked over at the operations dude, and he said, "Yeah, where's it?" He goes, "Oh man, you're good. Your policy, So they're
thinking that they're banking on the policy.
Yeah. And so I said, "Okay, cool. So I'm good for a little while until I figure out where I'm going to go, what I'm going to do." And I said, "Oh yeah, you're good."
11 months.
So I let him say, "Okay, is that all you had?" Yeah,
do you hear this, Cindy? 11 fucking months. They were fucking milking that udder. Go ahead. So
9. So 9 months they didn't get paid. So
okay.
So anyway, so I let the conversation go. I said, "All right, guys, thanks for taking your time to meet with me." And we stood up, and then I sat back down. I said, "Now sit the fuck back down." I said, "Because now I got some shit that we need to figure out here." And I says, "So if you're saying I'm good and my insurance policy is good, then why in the fuck?" And I said it just like that. "Why in the fuck do you tell me when I called my insurance company a few days ago, they tell me my policy lapsed back in April?"
Oh man!
And you should have seen the confusion filled up that room, And then they figured out that they stopped paying that premium. Which was, I still remember the amount. It was $543 and 12 cents
a month. Okay, so this is where we'll get past this now. Now let's move past this.
Yeah,
this shit happened, but you were struck with sobriety because here how old were you at the time? 41, 42 years old.
40. I walked into
Okay.
treatment at
40 years old. Had you already in this 9 to 11 month period come to the conclusion and the decision that you want to stay sober 100%?
I pretty much had kind of just been, from again, that treatment center took me to meetings. And I didn't listen, man. I was all around the room looking at her, looking at him, looking at what the fuck is it,
you weren't serious.
All that. No,
serious.
But the whole time, again, this is the shit that I learned from years ago that the old heads taught me, is always pay the fuck attention. Always watch your surroundings. Always keep. So the whole time my ears were open to the people at the podium, and I heard what they. And then slowly I started going, "Oh shit! I remember when I felt like that, or I remember what he's talking about, or she, And then slowly, and then like I said, I had this person in the treatment center that just kind of kept nudging me when I needed, and I felt like I had a good therapist, but we didn't get too far. She ended up leaving the company. Pretty early on. Before I even left the detox house, but in that time we had gotten through some stuff, and she had, kind of given me a couple seeds, And so,
well, also apparently the center thought that you were a valuable, not just client, but eventually they brought you on.
Yeah, like 11 and a half months.
They hired
me as their men's IOP house.
Okay, manager. So you were running a house, you were a sober living manager and all that stuff. Yeah. And then something happened for you. Cindy asked her earlier. She said, "How do you stay sober today? Do you still do meetings? Do you have a sponsor? Do you sponsor?"
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes to all that.
Yeah. Yes to all that. So what happened?
I have to, man.
You said you were a person that sat in meetings and weren't even about this way of life.
Yeah, that was probably for the first few months.
Oh, it was just
4 or 5 months, And then 6 months, 7 months, things started making more sense. But I still wasn't. I had a sponsor. We did 1, 2, 3 in 6 hours in his apartment, but I didn't go any further than that. Stopped calling them. Didn't show up for a meeting that we're supposed to go to at somebody's house that I was wanted to go to so bad, but then I didn't. I called him and said, "Hey, man, I got to do something for the the center, which I did, but I ended up flaking. So I got my second sponsor, and that's when I dove in. However, I got that second sponsor. I was still kind of like dragging my ass, so to say. And then I think it was December. Was it December of 2015?
Mm-hmm.
You were the speaker getter for Gucci. You and I didn't know each other.
I wasn't the speaker getter, but I remember we did have a speaker.
Yeah. And your sponsor ended up speaking at that meeting that night.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the point where I realized I need to jump into this.
Right.
Because what that man, his story and what he had went through, and he was still sober, I think at the time, 32, 33 years. And I'm thinking, I went home that night and I laid in bed and looked at my ceiling and I said, Kerry, what the fuck are you doing, man?
Yeah.
Like, that guy can stay sober and have a life. And
then you can too.
And what am I complaining about? You know what I mean?
Right.
So that talk that night is what kind of propelled me. I called my sponsor the next morning, first thing, and I said, I need to jump into this. I need to be doing this. Because that man, and so here we are,
There's the divine intervention right there.
Yeah, man. I'm telling you, that talk that night opened me, just blew me. I got goosebumps, man. Look at that. Like that shit really
powerful
hit
night.
me. Yeah.
It's very powerful.
And that's what the program's about, man. He shared his experience, strength, and hope, and he got to me.
Trey just said the seed sprouted.
Absolutely.
Man.
Yeah.
So now, as far as this is what I love about you. For one, you're like my brother. Like, I love you. You're such a good man in recovery. And top of the conversation, I said you demonstrate what it means to be a man of recovery. You do a lot of things that you're of service, maximum service to God and His fellows. And I watch this with you. You have a certain calmness about you. Often when we have conversations when it comes to recovery-based stuff, I noticed that I can count on you for many different things, but one thing I could definitely count on you on is that you're not wishy-washy and you're not 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You've surrendered completely.
If that's what you want to call it.
I mean, you're not in relapse mode. You don't talk about I'm always in my head. None of that shit. You're very at peace with yourself and the world. I just want to say, like, what if there's any people out there struggling, or the people that you encounter that are struggling, what do you tell them to give them inspiration and hope to be able to come on this path? What can you tell them?
I mean, just my experience. I just share my experience so far. I was a very negative individual for a long time. I lived in a negative lifestyle.
Right.
I saw a lot of bad shit. I felt, with my best friends passing away and a lot of other stuff, man, really bad stuff that I still pray about a couple things that happened years ago every morning and every night for God to please forgive and take that, but you got to start somewhere, and like, people talk about the gift of desperation and all that. And that was God working in my life when I was done with my life. Like, if that's not a sign how my boy Ricky was out here in California and had this whole experience in his sober living, and then he picked up the phone and called me. We hadn't talked in a year, and he wakes me up next to the tracks that I'd planned on taking myself out on. Come on, man. I can't deny this shit no more. There's something that wants me to be here for a reason.
Right.
And like, I truly want to be in a position where I can go out and help people like you. Like, you demonstrate this shit better than anybody I know. And I'm not just saying that to talk up this podcast, man. You really do. And I look up to that. I want to be in a position where I can branch out. And
I learned from Cindy Wofford. That's why.
Oh, was that Cindy?
Yeah.
What's up, Cindy? But like, it's just like, you and I were talking yesterday or day before, that I don't have that checkbox anymore. That option isn't available on my sheet or document, that contract that I signed with God in step 3. There's no secret document there. It's still got the checkbox to go back and use. It just doesn't make sense.
You've made an absolute decision to be, this is your way of life. You've made that decision.
Yeah, man. It's the best feeling I've ever got. I was reading.
Better than the drugs, better than the alcohol.
YouTube last night, and some dude said, I've been sober for 3 years. I used to do heroin. And he said it right how I say it. Being sober and having a relationship with his higher power, this is his exact words, is the best feeling that any drug or drink has ever put in my body. And that's the way I feel, man. This power that I've tapped into is the best feeling I've ever had in my life, man. No ecstasy, no nothing, no nothing.
None of that stuff can add up to this.
But with that, I still struggle with stuff. I still got insecurities. I still have fear of people. And, there's things that I have to work on. I still like, I hate being a speaker getter. I'm saying it. I can't, this shit's about to drive me crazy. I'm a speaker getter for 2 meetings and it's about to blow my head off, man. But, we talk about that. But, like there's still a lot of stuff that I have to work on. I have to fully open up with people, like as in just interaction wise.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm the type that for years I just sit back and I watch everybody, and I can interact no problem with people, but it's just that initial interaction. I don't that was what the alcohol and drugs always took care of for me.
Mm-hmm.
I had no problem going up and saying, hi, my name's Carrie, I'm da-da-da. Now it's like I'm just kind of reserved in that sense.
I gotta say, like I watched you, and maybe I pushed you a few times to do this, but like I watched you and have watched you help several people, mostly young men or just men that need help in the recovery space.
It's anybody, man. It's any human
I
being
watch
on
you
this earth.
sit with them. I watch you read with them. I watch them look up to you, and not because there's something like where you're like coming from a higher level, like you always keep it neutral. You always let them know that you're no different than them and that you're there for them. And you don't ever take it personal if they end up going out. You know what I mean? Like people go out.
Just happened.
It just happened. But the fact is that you are such a good man, and I look up to you. Some people say like, you call me sponsor, but like really, truth be told, is like we kind of sponsor each other, and I think that's a good thing because through you, I learn a better sense of calmness. I learned to not be judgmental. You're very neutral. Like you're not a person that's out there hating on people and shit like that. And so I learned from you. I appreciate, and like you're not just one of my roommates in one of the houses I live in, but also. You're like one of my best friends. Like I could always count on you. And I kept thinking over the weeks of having different guests on here, why not have Kerry on here? Because he's got a fucking hell of a story, and he's just you're a good like a good man.
It's hard to hear that because I wasn't for so long.
I understand, man. And when we're caught up in our demons and our addiction and alcoholism, it's like I feel your emotions. I have to hold myself together when I see the tears coming out of your eyes.
I can't. This is, if anybody's new out there and never hears this, this is what you get back. You get your emotions back.
That's right.
You get your feelings back.
You get to feel your feelings. As Earl would say, you get to feel your feelings.
And I can't, like, it hits me right here, man.
Oh, I understand.
It comes up and
I think even
it's
if
not
listen, just to try to out ourselves, like to off ourselves, like by putting our head on a railing on a railroad track for a train to run us over. I was contemplating my own suicide myself. I was like, I need to go up to Malibu in my fucking car and drive this car off a cliff. This is like towards the end. But knowing me, with my fucking luck, I will probably demolish the entire car. I'll be shacked up in some fucking hospital room as a paraplegic, just thinking I couldn't even pull off my own fucking suicide, right? But truth be told, my ego wasn't going to let me kill myself anyway. So why not just drown myself in drugs and alcohol, which is useless anyways, because that's a slow suicide within itself. That's especially the type of drugs I was doing.
Death, yeah.
It's a spiritual death. With the type of drugs I was doing, people would tell me, Pej, fuck, you're kind of like, you go a little too hard. Like you're going to die if you keep.
I've seen the pictures.
You keep drinking and using like this. And I'd say, good, fucking give me more. It's like, let me fucking do drugs that are going to make my heart just blow out of my chest. But in reality, like, that's not who we were. When I look back at who I was then, and I'm sure you do too, you look back at who you were then.
Sure.
That's not our true essence. That's not our true self. That's not our authentic self. This is what we tap into when we come to recovery is we get to have this new, beautiful way of life without having to put substances into our body to try to make ourselves feel good. And that's the inspiration within itself. You've got a lot of people that came on here today that were, just up talking to you, man. That people be loving you, boy. People be loving you. So just know that you've put a lot of love into the universe, and the love is reciprocated. And just know
it's the only thing that makes sense anymore.
It is
like love and kindness, like straight up. Like why am I going to get on the ass about this and that, whatever her or she did. It's just that energy that you expel on negativity is just it's false. It's bullshit.
Right.
Like I just don't. I don't. It doesn't feel good anymore.
Absolutely. All right. Well, this was a wonderful episode. It was so
Thank
good
you.
to have you
Yeah.
here, and you were struck with sobriety. And look at you, look at where you are now. That you never would have known that since your ass got brokered, that you would actually have this way of life. Like that, it's a beautiful thing.
Didn't know this.
Yeah. Thank you all for coming in to check Carry Out today. I love you all very much, and have a lovely rest of your day. And we'll be back on next Sunday. Bye.